instead of solid. That's what a slip is. So the green is a white slip that I've added chrome oxide to. The white is a white clay that I've even added some zinc to make it whiter, etc., etc. There's a little oil lamp that is decorated just like the bowl you saw me decorate in the video. Okay. There's another bowl with an unglazed exterior, a footed bowl. And a pitcher with a lot of exposed clay too, again. There's a sample of tiles that I have made. You won't see any like that in my shop these days, although I do still have the molds for that. My intention was to design a whole alphabet of tiles that were in the Art Deco sense like this, with this, because my red clay and that green glaze I have are very Art Deco colors. So I started on the alphabet and I did about 5 of them, and they were great, I loved them. But each mold is a big plaster mold that's like this big and about 6 inches thick, and it weighs, 35 pounds. And I just don't have storage for all this molds. So I quit the project after about 5 letters. But every once in a while I would drag those molds out and dust them off and cast a few more tiles. But I really like that a lot. It's one of my favorite tiles I've ever made. And there's some nice, very simple no decorations on these saucers and cups. And there's a nice mug with a lid that happens to fit it, so you can keep your tea warm. And some goblets. These you could see probably in my shop today. And the other thing I do with myself is Contra Dance. That's where the other energy goes. My other major energy output is to help organize the monthly Contra Dances here in Berea, and I've done this again for 20 years. I've served on the committee and been a regular dancer in this area for this long. So, that's enough of looking at pictures. If you have questions, I'm certainly glad to answer questions. I've been working out there. Like I said, my husband and I divorced. He had not made pots for years and years and years, although he's slowly starting to again with some other friends here in town who have communal studios. So you'll occasionally see one of his pots, like at the Arts Council exhibit. He shows up with something once in a while, and he may get back to making pots full time one day, I don't know. But he's a great potter, and we worked together well for a long time. We were married 26 years, so it was a great partnership most of that time. And then since then, since our divorce in early 96, 95, I've been working alone. I moved to the country because I realized when my younger son, the one who made this video, when he turned about 16 and got his driver's license and no longer needed me to pedal him around, etc. One day I was there at my studio on Center Street, and I thought, my whole life has been nothing but a series of interruptions working this way. Trying to raise 2 kids with studio in the basement of the house and business in the front of the house. And I was just, I'm ready for a big change. I'm going to the country. So I separated sales from production, and it's another of the best things I ever did for myself. Ever since I've been making pots in my semi-finished studio out there, it's been great. I enjoy my work so much more. I enjoy working totally alone and not having to answer to anybody about anything. Not having to direct anybody to try to help me do whatever it is I'm doing, I'm really stubborn and independent about that, and I will figure out a way to do it myself rather than depend on someone else to help me do it. That, of course, slows me down and stifles me sometimes, but I make friends with it and move on anyway. So I anticipate continuing to make pots as a studio potter, as long as I'm physically able to get up and move around each day. So, and I will have to keep selling them, to keep doing that. I certainly can't survive on my Social Security income. One of my big shortcomings as a maturity person was to not plan ahead financially. I planned ahead lots of other ways, but not financially. But that's all right too. I'm good. So anyway, I brought with me some old photo booklets, because I wasn't about to scan all these photographs to show you. But this is studio construction in 3 different books. It goes on for, begins in, it begins with walking to the property in 1989 and putting in found the grade beam in the fall of 1994. That's when the construction started. You can see the site graded here, and then starting in with the rebar and these bits in the ground, etc. Anyway, if you'd like to look through these, you can look through them, pass them around, whatever, come up front. I also grabbed 2 old portfolios back in the old days when an artist kept a portfolio and people wanted to look at pictures and blah, blah, blah.
That's like before websites, right?
It was way before websites. And you get to see in here, I didn't edit them at all, I just picked them up out of the file drawer and brought them. Here's my dinnerware sales, dinnerware list from January of '02. I used to make this dinnerware at this price in 2002. And here's something here's my artist statement from 2010, bunch of photographs of all kinds of stuff. Here's me in our studio in Center Street in, 80 something. Anyway, you're welcome to look at those. And I brought lemonade and cookies, so I want you all to come up and choose a cup to drink out of, or a bowl, and have a cookie and some lemonade. And compare my old first plate to my most recent plate. This is such a much better plate. If you'll look at this one and see that it's not even flat, it goes up and down and up and down, and has a well around the edge where all the liquid would collect. And yeah, it's
I can tell when you first held it up that you weren't particularly proud of it. And I was like, well, what's wrong with it? It looks like a perfectly good plate.
I was like,
no, it's a strange little one. Oh, and ignore this. Some of these pieces have price tags on this because I got them right off the shelf in the gallery, but I did wash them. So please come help yourself. If you've got any questions.
So when you had your first child, it seemed like it was a decision to stop. And you call them pots, even if they're not a pot. If they're a plate, can you call it eating pots?
It's a vessel. If it's a vessel, it's a pot.
Okay.
And a plate is a vessel. It holds.
Okay.
It has a bottom and sides. Even though the sides aren't very big, it's still a vessel.
So was it a decision? I mean, or you just were so overwhelmed with being a mother?
No,
like, I don't
it was,
have time. Or unfortunately,
literally, I was literally, sitting at the table filling out paperwork for graduate school at Alfred, and something just came over me, and I just thought, I'm not gonna do this now. It's time for me to get pregnant and have a baby. We'd been married 6 years, going on 7, and it was just the thing,
it's time.
Yeah.
Turn that switch.
And I did, and something, and within minutes, hours anyway, I was pregnant.
Wow.
I found
missed that
that
in school.
that-
I didn't get it that way.
growing a baby took my creative energy
It did,
at that point.
It took lots of energies.
It.
And for whatever reason, I just had no interest in worrying about designs, worrying about what I was going to do next, worrying about whether anything was selling or any money was coming in. I'm pregnant. That's all I am right now. Yeah.
Interesting. And then you stepped out of it.
Yeah, then I got over that.
That's
Yeah, I got over that. I went on to something even more fulfilling. Keeping up with the baby and making pots.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was a smell thing or, I'm sure probably because they say
No, as far as
just I just don't want to do it.
I just couldn't find the energy and the mindset for it. Because making pots really does. Can I help you with the? Oh, you're going to choose one of the funkiest old cups.
Do you think that's very common with potters or artists? I don't know when they get pregnant,
I don't know, but I do know that of all the potters that I know who started when I was, in the early 70s, learned to make pots and thought they were going to be studio potters from there on out, there aren't very many of us who really are.
well, it's hard too.
And I realized that the men that I knew, only one of them, I can really only think 2. I can think of 2 men that I was in college with who have been potters all these years. The others all either felt pressure, like my ex-husband, felt pressure to make money and provide security, which being a studio potter doesn't make sense. And so they felt pressure and they went off and got other, got real jobs and changed careers and blah, blah, blah. Even though some of
Insurance and
them-
that kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, and whereas I never felt any of that. I never worried about whether there was insurance or I just never did. I don't know why. I never did.
So after you graduated and set up your studio, it's just a leap of faith, like you just assumed
Exactly.
that-
My whole life's been a leap of faith, really. Yeah, it is. And I've been lucky that I've survived it, literally. Yeah. So, and I know that, and I am grateful. I'm grateful for the Berea community because of that. The Berea community and my friends here have supported me through those times where, and I'm sure they were going, man, what was she thinking? Surely she didn't think she'd get on her. But they were there when I needed them and got me through it, whatever it was. So, yeah.
Teresa, I think I still have one of your very first bowls that's kind of wobbly. I think you gave it away or sold it, and you saw it years ago. We're totally embarrassed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
It's
it.
worse than the plate, huh?
Yeah, I
Oh,
love
yeah.
it.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I see this plate and I remembered the struggle. I remember it so well. Oh, man, I thought, what am I doing? Why do I think I could do this? Yeah.
So you learned to build a wall up before you put the flange, or?
Yeah, this plate is made by, pulling it out nice and flat with a heavy bead here at the end, and then pulling that bead up like a little short cylinder, and then laying it out with a rib, with the edge of a wooden tool, just laying it out as it's going around. Yeah. Whereas here I couldn't even get it opened up with the bead still on the end to do anything with, and it was hard to get it flat. And then you come back and trim it, come back and trim the excess weight off the bottom, and, yeah. I mean, even
And
my.
how many
even
did you
my-
trim through when you were practicing?
Yeah, exactly. I probably threw 30 to get 13,
Yeah.
And how many crack in the
Yeah,
kiln?
some cracked in the kiln because I'd stressed them out by turning them over too early and putting pressure on the lip, and yeah. There's a lot of things about making pots a lot of technical flaws that show up as they're coming out of the final firing that you don't suspect are there, because there's no sign of it until they're in that final firing. There are little cracks. There's a problem called dunting, which is a crack down the side and across the bottom, that's caused by leaving too much water in the bottom of the pot while it's drying. But you don't notice it till it comes out of the glaze kiln. It'll dry and you don't see a crack there, and the pot will dry and it'll be fine. You put it in the kiln and it comes through the bisque fine, and you glaze it, and put it back in the kiln, and then it comes out with this big crack. It's called dunting, and it's from uneven drying in that initial stage.
So that's why your studio works. It's human, but things dry.
Right,
evenly.
dry slow,
As long as
they
it
dry
dries
slow.
evenly.
And I've learned to be really careful when I throw, to not let water puddle in the bottom and sit there while I'm actually trying to finish the pot. I just taught learn shops a couple weeks ago, and that's one of the things that new throwers do. It's really hard to learn how much water you need, because water and slip with clay can not only act as a glue, it also acts as a lubricant. And it depends on how much and what position, whether it's going to be a glue or a lubricant. It can either stop the movement, or it can help the movement. And that's something you only learn from experience. And so at my learn shop, I was constantly having to talk to the person and say, you better get some of that water out of there, or this pot's not going to make it through, So, and sure enough, a whole lot of those pots that I discarded for those people didn't make it through.
And how big of a pile of discarded pottery is outside your door?
Outside my studio now, you remember the studio I'm in now is my mature potter studio.
So it's
I'd
not
already
that
been making pots 25 years when I moved into the studio.
Uh-huh.
So there's not a whole lot, but I do have sort of a gully. There was sort of a gully off to the side there, and that is where I've thrown shards all these years. And now my little grandsons and their friends come and play archaeologists. Dig up, and they're treasure. They carry home these treasures. These little girls. Oh, it's awful. And I let them do it. But whatever. Yeah, but I use them as landfill. You can't break them up. A fired stone wood, you can't break it up and put it in the driveway because its edges are too sharp. They would cut your tires. I can throw my bisqueware. If I have bisqueware that doesn't make it, I can throw it into the driveway and call it gravel and drive on it. And I do. But finished work, no, you can't do that. So, that mug that Mary's drinking out of, its foot is all broken and chipped. The glaze runs and drips too much.
So
And it
ran
ran down,
too
it stuck
far
to the
and then
kill
it-
shelf. I had to break it loose from the kill shelf and then grind it smooth so that it, but I kept it because it's an unusual shape for me. I don't make mugs that shape very often. And I love the glaze, but,
So do you only sell at your studio, or do you go to shows, or
Um,
what do you?
I don't sell anything at my studio. The phrase,
Sorry, I meant at your,
that's
at
another
103
thing,
gallery.
the terms studio and
Sorry.
gallery, a lot of people apparently interchange, and to me, they're such different things. To me, a studio is a workspace, and a gallery is a show space. So people will call me on the phone and they'll say, "Are you going to be in your studio tomorrow?" And I'll say, "Yeah." So they show up over here on Short Street, I expect you to be there. And I'm going, "No, I told you I was going to be in my studio."
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, I sell from my own little gallery there, which I share with 2 other Berea artists. It's a little co-op of 3 of us, and has been all along. I sell from there probably 95% of what I make these days. I haven't done any fairs in about 5 or 6 years because I don't feel the need to. Doing fairs is not only physically exhausting, but it's a huge financial risk you take, you know, and all this planning and blah, blah, blah. I pretty much have given up doing fairs, and
You have to carry a lot of stuff.
yes, you
You
do.
risk a lot of breakage.
And 5 fingers.
Yeah, that too. So anyway, I haven't done any fairs in a long time. I sell wholesale to maybe 4 other galleries in the world these days, not many at all. Yeah. And those are simple transactions. One would be the Artisan Center. I'm a member of the Southern Highland Craft Guild, which is headquartered in Asheville, and they have some really fine galleries down in that area in Asheville, North Carolina. They used to have one in Cumberland Gap that I sold a lot of work through. And I'm a member of the Kentucky Guild of Artists and Craftsmen, have been ever since right after college.
And you'll be surprised, or I don't know, you may know it, some of the antique shops in town
Yes,
have found your pieces in different
Yes.
places and have them on displays.
I've been around that long.
Yes. I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that
I
one.
know, and I found my
Uh-huh.
pieces selling for not even what the cost of that clay is.
Right.
And I've also found them selling for 3 times as much as I sold it for initially.
Right.
And it's like, but this is crazy. So I just move on. Yeah. That studio construction pictures, you'll see a lot of pictures in there of work parties, where I invited all my friends to come. And it turns out that out where I live in Red Lick, I'm surrounded by other craft artists and creative people, and almost every structure out there was built by each other. We all got together and helped each other build our houses and studios over the last 35 years. And I certainly could not have built my studio without that, without those big influxes of major help for lifting and hauling things and getting the roof on in one day, rather than taking me 6 months, stuff like that. So although I did most of the construction myself, I certainly didn't do every tiny little thing of it myself. But I did design it so that I could do it myself. It's made up of concrete block walls, but the concrete blocks are small blocks. They're 6-inch block instead of 8-inch block. And they're not laid up with mortar seams, they're laid up with a surface bonding cement. And so I just dry stack the blocks and then slather this stucco-like stuff on the surface, on both surfaces. So it's 2 parallel walls with insulation between the 2 walls. So my building is an exterior envelope that expands and contracts depending on the weather, and an interior envelope that's much more stable. So it's pretty easy to live in. It's coolish in the summer and not that hard to heat in the winter. And it's passive solar design. It's positioned really well with great windows. That part worked out really well, and the cross ventilation in every room. I put years and years of study and planning into getting the design of that building. That was my other thing. If I hadn't been a nurse or an artist, I would have been an architect. Yeah.
So now you've gotten to do all of it.
And now I've gotten to do it all, that's right. Yeah. So,
And she also shows up to help friends. She said, pack up my tool room, which I
Oh my gosh.
totally
Anyway,
helpful.
yeah, Kenneth, that's actually a cousin of mine. Kenneth and I are cousins and grew up in the same town. Yep.
Oh, didn't see that.
We have common relatives and common childhood experiences. And you know Gladys Took.
I was just sitting here going, gosh, Debbie used to visit Gladys too.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah, Gladys.
But I did not know she was an artist. I didn't
Really?
know
You
that.
didn't know she has a studio up there? No.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, please have a cookie and some lemonade before you go, and
Teresa, thank you so very much for being the Berea Arts
Oh, you're
Council and the
welcome.
Library Artist of the Month.
thank
People
you.
have enjoyed seeing your work, and, you know, sometimes, I mean, I just, talking with Athena, it really, and she was apologizing she was unable to be here today.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how many people live in Berea and don't know Berea artists.
Oh, I know.
You know, so it's just so wonderful to have that display out
It
there,
is.
so people are seeing monthly
Yeah.
that you have.
Oh, I agree, and
artists.
lots of people have.
Yes,
Hey,
that's
Carol,
right.
Harry. Well, you
They're in
got,
time for the
you
cookies
got
and-
here for the
cookies and
cookies and
juice.
lemonade.
I'm here for cookies and
I thought it
juice.
was at 3.
No, it started at 2.
Oh, okay, well, we've just, glad to see you, Teresa.
Had a real nice. Well,
Well,
Harry might have learned a little more about me, but Carol probably knows all those details herself already. My
But
years
she's got
of years.
lemonade and cookies.
Okay,
Yes.
just in time.
No, not just in time.
Yeah. Shucks.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I had a question. In the video, you were
Go ahead.
going down when you first threw it. Does that take its toll? Like at the end of the day, can you walk?
Oh, yeah, it's
or
physically exhausting. I
What do
mean,
you do
you are
to
using
counteract
those
it?
muscles to throw pots. Yeah, you
Are
definitely
you just
are.
constantly in pain, or do you?
No,
do
I
you
don't
yoga all
have,
the
no, I have
time,
any
or-
pain, no. You notice I was standing up at the wheel to throw. When I first learned to throw at school, we sat down to throw. I also started out throwing on a kick wheel where you kick with your foot. Your foot is the accelerator and the brake.
Ouch.
And that can wear and tear on your body parts. Also, I've done treadle wheel where you lean against a board and push a treadle back and forth. So all your weight's on one leg and this other leg's doing all the work, but it also is the brake and the accelerator. And that too can be real exhausting. So I use electric wheels almost all the time. I have only 3 wheels set up in the studio now. I have a kick wheel on the porch that I almost never go out to, and another kick wheel in storage in the shed. But I learned on a kick wheel, and I really like teaching on a kick wheel because it involves your whole body and you learn faster. But I use electric wheels almost always. That one standing up, I started standing up to throw probably 28 years ago or so, because I realized that if I'm standing up, every time I take a pot off the wheel and have to set it aside, I actually take a couple of steps and move and change my body weight and use my whole body a lot more, and I don't get stuck in a rut. When you're sitting down, you're in that position, and when you move the pot, you're just going to do this, you know, and set it down, and your legs get really tight. And so I like to throw standing up.
And you can dance with the wheel
Exactly.
a lot more, because I was, even though it was more the camera was focused on the wheel, I could
Right.
see your
Oh, yeah.
angle shifted
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
you were doing that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's another reason that potters don't last 46 years, just because they get, you know, get in some physical bind. Carpal tunnel syndrome is the most common physical problem for a potter. And I've managed to avoid that by being real sensitive to strain and stress in my wrists. And when I sense that that's happening, I just quit doing whatever it is I'm doing and go do some other thing. You know, being a potter, one of the reasons I think I like being a potter is because I also have to be an electrician and a plumber and a builder and a carpenter and a glaze chemist and a kill firer and a pyromaniac and all these things. So if, you know, one part of it is giving my wrist problem, I'll just do something else for a while. I'll quit throwing pots and make tiles that afternoon instead, for instance, or mix glazes or clean up the studio or something. But I try to be real sensitive to those stresses and strains. Yeah. Okay.
That was fascinating.
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 Good, I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody got off.